We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Taste with you well, you've gone sour. You want the world plus everything, but you won't work an hour. And now your questions are guilt creeping, and you're going buying flowers. You throw away the dreams we had, boy. I won't allow it. I said we're gonna fall out. Let's see you get out. I think we're gonna fall out. So shut your mouth.
Good evening, welcome along to NUFC Matters. It is the professionals with me, Steve Wraith. Got Stu and Mitch with us. We're going to try and brighten up what has been an awful weekend in the UK for other reasons. And we hope wherever you're watching the show tonight, you are safe and keeping out of trouble. Stay safe, everybody, please do. Good evening, lads. A very upbeat Amigos, Mitch, on Friday, and deliberate ploy, I think, by us here to try and ease the nerves, because lots of people have got a bit of a way of reacting. I guess we've talked about it many times on here about social media, etc. There's still a long time to go in this transfer window. There are ripples, there are movements. We've signed players, and we've managed to get rid of some of the players who needed to go, and there's still a lot of work to do, and not many people are making the moves because not everyone's back training up and down the country, and across Europe and across the world because of the Euros, because of the African Nations Cup and various other things that go on. But the season is on the horizon, and I get it. I know why people are nervous, but we're trying to be, a little bit more positive, Mitch, and try to just calm people's nerves a little bit.
Yeah, and I think we'll have to, also take a lot of other things into account. I think it's quite clear now that we've had a degree of upheaval in the back office, if you will. And that's got to have affected certain things, certainly affected an ability to act quickly while people settle into new roles and people go and people come. There's not actually been much significant business done anyway. Only really Villa. But you've got to remember, Villa were painted into a PSR corner. They've had to let 2 or 3 good quality players go and then find ways to replace them. And, fair play to them. They've done it in a very rapid fashion. But that's the nonsense of PSR, isn't it? That clubs who have owners who have cash that they would like to put in can't, while clubs laden down with billions of debt can. It's all a bloody mess, really. We haven't got the full squad back together yet in training. I think the Japan trip, we'll probably talk about that in a bit. But again, the merits of that, it's certainly been a very good PR exercise. It's been a very good exposure in the Far East, tied in with what Adidas have done with launching the third strip out there in a very significant fashion. But yeah, I think it's better to try and look at what's going on in the bigger football world. Look at how we've been affected by it and the way we've been we're juggling, ourselves. We've got more players we need to shift out as well, and really, what the man making those decisions in terms of transfer windows, etc., is barely being in place in some respects. And I've got no doubt that some of the targets may have changed, some of the objectives may have changed slightly. And that's all been going on behind the scenes while we've been, really only just now starting to turn attention back to the Premier League with the Euros barely done. So I'm not too bothered about it. I'm not too concerned. I do think there's a long way to go in the window. As I've always made it clear, I think the transfer windows now are a total nonsense because they totally don't do what they were ever intended to do. And it just becomes a mad scramble often in the end. This window might be a little different, but again, let's see. It almost needs a couple of deals to happen to start a domino effect of transfers, I think.
Yeah, mate. Stu, last week on the show, you were saying that you would expect a signing in, before this weekend, before we came back on air with the professionals. I don't think we're too far away. But what's your take on the news this week that Asula could be the guy coming in as an extra forward, I guess, I would imagine, to Isak and Wilson, who I presume will stay, and obviously Mark Gay from the England's Euro team, probably one of the best players in that tournament.
Yeah, well, to steal a word that Mitch uses quite often, every transfer window, fluid. And we were reliably informed last week that there was a signing going during the week, and it did look like it was going to be Chow, Thiao, however you want to pronounce it. But it seemed to be that AC Milan weren't playing the same game as what Newcastle wanted them to do, and that's their right. It's their player. They can ask for what they want, and if they're not satisfied with what's being put in front of them, then that's their right to refuse it. We can't be entitled and say we want them, so you have to give them to us. We're not that type of club. But if he's, in a way, I'm proud and I'm glad that they've said, look, we're not going to be blackmailed into this. He's not the only centre half in the world. We've got other targets. So they said, this is our offer, take it or leave it. So that doesn't mean he'll never come. It just means they did the same with Botman, didn't they? And they left it for a window and then went back for him. But that was the one that I was referring to. Then with the striker, I think he's perfect. Is it Asalu? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's the perfect fit. Someone who's got a modicum of Premier League experience, but he has a massive potential, and he's now going to be in a team that'll be struggling mid to bottom of the Championship due to financial restraints on that club, and to be jettisoned back into the Premier League, into one of the top teams, then for him it's a great move, and he can only learn from people like Isak and obviously Wilson, who, whether it's by hook or by crook, he is now staying. I would imagine. I don't think they'll sell him, even though the Saudi window does finish a couple of weeks after the UK one or the European one. I can't see Wilson going now, but out of the three that's been mooted to leave, like regulars, which was the Trippier, Almiron and Wilson is the one I would want to stay, because if he was fit, or as and when he is fit, he has a huge say on how the results in the game finish. And I don't think there's many Newcastle fans that don't like a fit Callum Wilson. The issue has always been his fitness. And I know Mitch alluded to it last week regarding this new performance director said, look, you've got this wrong with you, this wrong with it. Could all be linked to this operation he's had. And hopefully for us, a short-term loss could be a long-term gain and keep him fit through the season. Because the biggest concern I've got is come this time next year, there's a lot of people out of contract, squad players, not many regular starters, but squad players who are very good backups. You've got the Dan Burns, the Trippier, if he was to stay, which I don't think he will, but if he was to stay, he's one of them. I think there's about 6 or 7. Shaw's another. And you start looking and thinking, right, hang on, if we don't get this Champions League spot, then you can start adding the Isaacs, the Brunos, the Gordons to that list. And it could be an exodus through no fault of our own, but due to the rules that are put in place for us to play with. So if I can work that out, you can work that out, and Mitch can work that out, I'm quite sure the people charged to make the decisions for Newcastle United Football Club are fully aware of it as well. So this is why it was someone like Gay who they've been linked with, and by all accounts, the fellas keen to come to Newcastle. I look at this with cautious optimism. Of course, it's a player that I don't imagine many Newcastle fans wouldn't want. He'd be a fine addition to not just the squad, but the starting 11. And it would give us a formation flexibility. You know, you could then switch to a back three of Shaw, Gay, and then Botman, if as and when they're all fit, and then allow us to play a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-3, whichever way they wanted to do it. It gives us that extra option. But getting back to Aslu, I think his potential, he's got the pace, he has got power, and I think he's someone that could come on and be explosive for 10 or 15 minutes occasionally, and it'll give Isaac that rest, because what we can't do is keep flogging him as we are. You know, I know I joked about a couple of weeks ago we should be wrapping him up in bubble wrap and cotton wool and everything else, but you've got to let him play his natural game without fear of him being injured. But that is a big fear, and I think I alluded to, if we can get through to the first international window, which isn't shortly after the season starts, you know, it'll give, by that time Wilson's back, and then it'll give them time to work with Aslu, and hopefully then he's up to speed with what's required of playing for Newcastle, what his role is, and he's at an age where if he comes with the right attitude and willing to learn, and I think the word attitude is very, very important, because it's one of the key factors we look at in signings, and this is why over the last 3 years we've been very successful in the signings that we've managed to get, because the guys are all in it together and they've got the right attitude. So for Aslu to come in, which is all done by the shouting, and when I mentioned Gay with cautious optimism, it's because we all know the agents have started mouthing off, saying, "Oh, Newcastle has been leaked," and that's not how we like to do our business. And it starts alerting players, teams like Chelsea's, the Liverpool's, and I don't think any player who is got international aspirations would want to go to someone like Chelsea at the moment, the way they are, and how many centre halves they've got anyway. But he could come be a mainstay of our defence, and for me, it would be an easy sell. And as long as they get the wages right, then hopefully he's paraded during the course of this week as a Newcastle United player. And as I said, you're signing an England international, and we've probably got England's 2 future fullbacks either side of them. So you could start with Shaw, and then if Botman comes back to be his Imperious best, then that's the headache the manager wants. When you've got 5 or 6 quality players, all worthy of a start, all jostling for a position. And when you see someone like Bruno, I think we've all seen the clips where he returned to Japan to see the squad, the genuine warmth and love and affection, and he come up with a statement yesterday about how this is his team. I think for me he's a shoo-in for the captain for this year.
We're going to come to that. It's one of the.
Okay, I'll just finish up this year. Regarding the signings, I think Aslu will be a great addition, because you can't go out and buy a 50-60 million forward and say you're not starting, because they wouldn't come. And we have, whether people like it or not, one of the best centre forwards in the world. So we've all talked about where it'd have to be someone near the end of the career or someone at the start of the career, and he's at that stage. And for the price that's been quoted, for me, he's a snip.
Yeah, I would agree. Look, there will be things happening. Lots of people as well commenting about your original prediction of, potentially, 150, 200 million. And, I think what people are saying in the chat is right. We've got a situation where Newcastle have, they spent 10 million on a goalkeeper. They've spent 28 million on Holds. It potentially looks like they will spend 15 million on Osula. They've been linked with players in and around the 50 million mark, including Mark here this week. So, that's what, 65, 75, that's 105 million pound already that if we get one of these bigger name players in, that Newcastle will have outlaid. So, the fact that Newcastle, may not be, I don't know, moving in the direction that some people want, maybe, or because they're not bringing in what people might deem a star signing, it doesn't mean they're not spending money. And, they are. It's as simple as that. Chiesa, that link won't go away. Neil Calvert's mentioning in the chat, 50 million euros for Chiesa allegedly got to be worth a punt. And yeah, that's been another name. The list that Barry has put up, and I'll probably go through it a bit tomorrow night rather than tonight, but I think it's up to 183 now. And I'll point back to what Stu said on a show probably a couple of months ago. He said it as well, that even if we just get 4 of those players on that list, it's a good transfer window. And we have got another transfer window in January as well. It leads to the question that we're asked in the in the chat. Where is it? I'll find it. John Askew, I will come back to your question. Lee Jones here, he says, if we get Gay and a right winger, do you think the squad's good enough to challenge the top 4 and possibly the title? Well, I'll tell you what bet I put on this week, Mitch. I went to the bookies and I got 1,500 to 1 for Newcastle to win the treble. That's the Premier League, the FA Cup and the League Cup. Not bad. Stuck a quid on. I mean, I'm not that confident, but you never know. I told you we're being positive. But yeah, I mean, it's a good question from Lee. If we do get in, let's say a Gay, but we'll say a centre half. Another centre half, a recognised centre half, a Premier League level centre half, and we get in a right winger, as Lee said. We'll go with Lee's question. Do you think we've got enough to challenge? I'll answer. I think yes, because I think we haven't got the pressure this season. And I genuinely think if we get more luck with injuries, which Bunce has been brought in to sort out and hopefully can, I think we've got a chance this season of doing something. I do. Nothing's changed at all for me on that score. I think Newcastle could really, mount a challenge at the top, certainly for the top 4. You never know. Look what happened with Leicester. But I think they'll win something this season. That's my. I'm going early with my prediction. I think they'll win something this season. So what about you, Mitch? What is that squad good enough with 2 more signings? I
think yes. You've got to look at also, we've got Tonali available for nearly the full season. I think that the first game in Japan showed me how much we've missed Willock and what an impact having him back fit could be. Not just as an impact player off the bench, but in certain games. His interaction with Isaac in that first game in Japan was quite, I think, would terrify some clubs. Just to see, the movement and the clever passing. Don't try and drop an offside trap against them because they'll break it every time. So for me, it's strategic additions, isn't it? We're fleshing out the squad that needed doing. And strategic additions, and I do think we showed some defensive frailties at times, and it wasn't all just because Pope wasn't there. So I think maybe we do need somebody to help just bring the quality up at the back 4. Right wing does seem to be where we're crying out for something. I think it's quite fit. It's quite clear that Wilson's staying. And yes, I saw the trip of him training. And he didn't look that unfit to me. And so the signing of the lad, as Stu says, it's good strategic signing in terms of, well, who will come and play third fiddle happily. So right wing, if we could drop a real surprise in at right wing in terms of who we could bring in, yes, I think we've got every chance of doing not just better than we did last season, but better than we did the season before.
2 signings away, Stu, from doing something next season, or I still think the squad's good enough, to be honest. But two more signings would certainly bolster that and give us a good chance with players coming back.
Well, I'll cast your mind back to May, before the season had finished, or it had just finished, and I announced that I put a £400 bet on Newcastle to get in the top 4, and the price I was given was 9-4, and I see the price is shorter than that now. I just checked today before we come on the show, and the reason behind that is multiple. You've mentioned Tonali, and I know I've said earlier that if Tonali had been fit for the season, would we have got 1 or 2 points more? I think the obvious answer is a yes, which would have given us European football. Then if you start taking, not even the injuries, take the freak injuries out, we would have been challenging for the Champions League. But I don't want to be a case of coulda, shoulda, woulda, you know what I mean? And I wouldn't say the phrase I was going to say, but you know where I'm coming from. But realistically, the club have looked at this and think, right, we need to do everything that we can to make that team on the pitch perform to the best of their ability. And there's a phrase that Anthony Gordon used in his Sky Sports interview, and the best ability is availability. And there's no point in having a superstar if he's on the treatment table for 6 months of the season. So by bringing the bunch in, I think this could help. It could cause initially a bit of, not conflict, but like, hang on. But if everyone starts pulling the same way and realise we're trying to achieve the same goal, there's no reason why, without European football as a distraction, which is strange, which is what we're trying to achieve. But the other teams around us have got it. The other teams who are capable of competing to get into the top 4 have got it. Chelsea seem to be in a bit of disarray with a new manager change, so the players have to then start learning a new system, as do Liverpool. Aston Villa, I think, although they managed to move players out and in quickly for their PSR issues, the player that made them tick was the one that they sold to Juventus, which was Luiz. So I think if we've kept the core of our squad, and by adding to it with quality, if someone like Mark Gea comes in and we get a top-notch Premier League proven right winger, and when I say that, you can throw so many names into the hat, but that just goes down to speculation. Whoever they get, I'll be happy with, because you refer to that list of Barry Hogan's got over 180 people, and I know I've said previously, if we got the 200 on that list and we signed 4 of them, we're only getting 2% right. But out of those 180, how many had mentioned Mark Gea or Aselu? Probably 1, if any. So the club will go about their business doing what they want, right? And I think the synergy between Mitchell and Howe is going to be key to our future. We are close. We're closer than we should be, and we've got a fantastic opportunity this season. So I was prepared to put my money where my mouth is with the bookies. And what I don't want to do is every show we do is talk about the bet with, or the non-bet that I offered to Ben Jacobs. I think we should leave that and park it and come back to that at the end of the window and see who would have been closer, knowing it was me. Because you don't go and bid 60 million for Elise, and you've got to be talking at least 60 to get in the conversation for Gay. So there's 120 million plus the nigh on 50 they've already spent. The club know how important this season is, not just for success this season, but to keep the upward trajectory that they've started with. There will be a stage it'll plateau out, but I think they've banked on it plateau out when it's consistently qualifying for Europe. And all in all, and with a good win behind us, there's no reason why we can't get in the top 4. And I expect us to. I genuinely expect us to. We've got a favourable fixture list at the start where we could get between 11 and 15 points from the first 5 games, or say between 10 and 15. And by that time, you get other people coming back. If we're led to believe Botman's ahead of schedule and the original Botman comes back, not the Botman we had over Christmas last year returns, we'll have a defence. Imagine that. You've got, as I mentioned there, and this is with the greatest respect to Shaw, who I thought was one of our best players last season. But if you had Botman and Gay partner each other with Hall at one side and Livermore at the other, and Nick Pope stays injury free, then we know what front three we've got. There's only one position that's identified where we could improve, and we genuinely have a team that can, a starting 11 anyway, that for me is more than capable of getting top 4 football. And I genuinely believe we will. So if we're staying positive, as I always do, I think more people should start looking at the bigger picture instead of spitting dummy out saying, oh, we lost a friendly, so what? You know what I mean? It's just like we're here to...
That's what friendlies are for.
Exactly. It is to try different things, and if you look at the friendlies, it's the lads slipping in. Oh yeah, they're applying some science. Young's and Nusi, he could be the find of the summer. You know, he's a player that could be coming in and helping out 5 or 10 minutes, give him some cup games, give him games about 2 or 3 up. Because again, we are recruiting not just for the first team, but also the youth team. So the structures sound all the way through. And I'm of the opinion where the club know what they're doing. It's for us, we can see they know what we're doing. Yes, we want it now, but let them get it there. Let them get there at the pace that they want to. And in fear of repeating myself, Steve, they've threw as much money as they can at this project. So, and they've spent it mostly wisely. So we'll see the fruition. And if you've got, as Mitch mentioned, Willock to come off the bench. If everyone picked the first 11, you've got someone like Willock, game changer. Harvey Barnes, game changer. You've got these people coming off the bench. And we don't want to harp on, look what we had 3 years ago, 5 years or 10 years ago, but we're bringing quality players off the bench that can affect Premier League games. And this is the +1%, +2% that makes a difference from Champions League or just missing out in Europe altogether, as last season showed.
Yeah, of course it does. Strength and depth is the key. That's what you need at a football club. We did put a poll up actually on our community posts a couple of days ago, just to find out where you felt we might finish this season. Currently, top 4, 52% is leading the way. Top 6, 33%. Mid-table, 8%. And winning the league, 8%. So not just me who's daft to think that anything's possible. But there you go. And we did have a question. The chairman, he says, 15,035 days ago, Newcastle won the Japan Cup. Has Steve ever lifted it or had a photo taken with it? I haven't, mate. Where is it? I don't know. I have had a photo taken with the Fairs Cup. And I've had a photo taken with the FA Cup. And I've had a photo taken with the Championship trophy. So I just need the Japan Cup, really, in the Premier League. And I'm done and dusted, lads and lasses. So we'll see.
Last time I saw it, it was in the old boardroom.
Somewhere.
But that was a long time ago.
Yeah. Long time ago. 100%. Yeah, it'll be still kicking around. Let's hope it's not like somebody's collecting pound coins in it or something at the football club now and not realising what it is. Haven't everyone taken the Intertoto Cup either? No. Okay, next question.
That was a certificate, wasn't it? That wasn't a cup.
Oh, there was actually some kind of big square thing. I think you could be right, a certificate within something, wasn't it? Yeah, something like that. So I'll dig out a photo of that. I'm sure I've got Scott Parker holding it up somewhere. There was a quick question from George Bainbridge before I get to John. He said, have the Dubai Mags been officially recognised by Newcastle United? No?
I haven't spoken to Julie about that for a little while, and she's been across in Japan. So I'll probably see her. I'll see her at the weekend coming because we've got an inaugural brunch at UBK to get everybody registered and get set up for the new season, and so people can pick their tables and all that kind of thing.
You there for the game on Friday, Mitch?
Huh?
The Stella Cup on Friday. Will you be there?
Possibly. Depends on the time.
It's 7 o'clock kickoff UK time, I think. So.
No, right off the evening, then should be. Might not go there though. I don't know. We'll see again. We're all sort of still desperate and working these things out ahead of the brunch on the Saturday. But as far as I know, we're in the last sort of things with legals to get the official status box ticked. I think the Danish mags are the other ones going through the same thing. So we should be the first two done. And then there's a roadmap for everybody else after that.
337 of you watching on Twitter. Get yourself onto YouTube if you can. Search NUFC Matters and just hit the subscribe button. It is free. We do 7 shows a week. John Askew, good evening. He says, afternoon, everyone. Lads, it's reckoned we can't go in for a top striker because Eddie's 4-3-3 means he would be on the bench. Should that be a concern? He then goes on to say, do you think Eddie will deviate from 4-3-3? When we beat Wolves and Spurs at home, we played deeper and it worked a treat. 4-3-3 leaves us open in midfield to the counter-attack. Any thoughts on that, lads? Mitch?
I would say we're not necessarily going for a top striker because a top striker will not come in and play second or third fiddle. That's more of the problem than the system for me. I think Eddie looks like he wants to stick with the same system from what we've seen pre-season. I guess you don't change what's worked too much. But I think I don't think a top striker is on the priority list. That's the problem where we need to strengthen, particularly now it's clear that Callum Wilson's staying. Yeah,
it looks very likely, doesn't it? I mean, that injury, it doesn't look like it's going to keep him out, for too long, especially with the images that we've seen of him, getting involved with a team. So hopefully that surgery's been a success and he comes back as good as new. Yes, Stu, it's an interesting question. I mean, 4-3-3, means, of course, Newcastle will go for a big striker. It looks like centre-half and right wing probably are still the main focuses, and obviously still need to get people out as well. But, what's your views on John's question?
Well, we're all football managers, but I think by making the right additions to the squad, even if it is to be the centre-half and the right winger that is clearly predicted and likely, then for me it allows the options. As I referenced earlier, you can have Shaw, Gay and Botman as a back three. You could then play wing backs and have 3 in the middle. So you could play a 3-5-2, which would leave Gordon and Isaac up front. So imagine that sort of formation away from home against one of the competitors for the European spots. We could play a less attractive football and just blast the ball up front and let them two-leg it after it. It'll soon keep their defenders busy, wouldn't it? So it gives us options. And as I say, we're all football managers, but Eddie Howe's paid the big bucks to do it. But what he hasn't had has much choice, and what has worked for him has been the 4-3-3. And I think everyone's favoured 3 in the middle would be the Brunos, the Tonali and Joe Linton. With then if you had to have Willock, Longstaff and Miley as the backups. But again, this is in an ideal situation. Last season we showed us perfectly well that not everyone's going to be fit all the time. No squad has all the players fit all the time and go through a full season. But at least if we've got the options to change and they can find a system that suits and having the quality there to suit, there could be where there's a case of a big name player not getting into the team. But that happens at the top clubs. It happens at Liverpool. It happens at Man City. And people have to, for want of a better phrase, suck it and see and be part of something successful. We're going through a transition. And if the owners had their way, we would be buying Osman to play up front with Isaac and alternate them if we needed to, but we haven't got the capability of doing that due to the constraints of financial fair play, etc. So what we've got to do is look at what we've got and prioritise where the signings are. And it's been quite clear now with the 2 bids that they've made for the 2 big money bids, which has been for Gay and for Elise. They've already targeted the positions. So whoever they get, I trust that they will be a benefit to us as a team. And again, I still expect us to finish top 4. I think Aston Villa will fall off like we did to a point last season, because it's not the extra 6. Well, actually, it'll be an extra 8 games for them this season now, but it's not an extra 6 games that we had. It's the mental draining that it does.
Traveling.
But it's the euphoria of we're older, Steve, but the generation of the people that are playing the Champions League's everything. You know, they've grown up to the music, and I'm looking at Jacob Murphy's smile, for example, when we played Milan away. You realise he was on the telly playing in the Champions League. You know, and it's this sort of thing that's what I'm saying, emotionally drained. We won't have any of that, but we've got something to aim for, and I'll say when we achieve it, we'll be better prepared next year, and we'll have the blue chip players will be 2 years stronger. They would have seen a lot of beneficial additions to the squad, and the belief will be there where they can go and give it a good crack. Because every year there's one team that gets to the quarters or semis that people wouldn't have predicted at the start of the season. And I think if we get the right signings, a bit of pace on the right, then someone who can not even replicate but get close to what Gordon can achieve on the left, then we'll frighten most teams, and they'll be a lot more cautious. And we have to be prepared for teams coming to defend at St. James's against us. And when teams come to St. James against us, invariably, if we get the first goal, it becomes 2, 3, 4, doesn't it? So having the players you can mix a formation to come off the bench and make sure they're all feel included, and then you can rest players and put them in. This season's going to be great for us. I honestly believe it.
Can I just remind people as well? Any Newcastle fan will know this out there, but you know, we last season scored a hatful of goals. Scoring goals wasn't Newcastle United's problem. Our problem last year was we didn't win the games that we should have been winning at home against teams which we should have been beaten. And obviously we had a lot of bad injuries, but we conceded a shed load of goals. So it makes sense to find the right recipe on the left and right with your players going forward and your players defending. And you also need to make sure you've got goalkeepers aplenty, because we can't rely on Nick Pope getting injured and not having somebody coming in as backup. Seems as if we've sorted that problem as well. I'm quite impressed with our new goalkeeper, despite the fact that he couldn't get a game at the club he's just come from. And we are actively chasing a class centre-half who will come in and play alongside another class centre-half when he gets fully fit in Botman. And from my perspective, you know, should all those what should I say? Should all of our dominoes fall in line, then we've got a good hand for next season, and we're going to be in a good position, Mitch. I genuinely, people might think I'm bonkers and putting a daft quid on a treble, but you know what? I genuinely think this is going to be our year for winning something, Mitch. I do. I think the proverbial monkey is going to be off our back. Gibbo can stop going on about 1969. Bob Moncur is desperate to stop going on about 1969, and I think we'll win. I think we'll win our first domestic trophy since '55. So that's where I'm going this season. That's what I think.
Look, that record's got to be broken Monday.
Yep,
it has to. And I think in some respects we've been unlucky not to have done it by now. But I do think. I think we're in a position where if we can strengthen correctly without the additional games in Europe, which obviously I would rather we had, because that means we're qualified for something. There's no reason why we've got a really good opportunity to press on and do even better. And doing even better would include winning something. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Well, what I would say is, as I've mentioned there, I've got £400 on Newcastle to get the top four. I wasn't so excited about winning the cups, even though that would, for me, I think for people of our generation, and we want to see them lift silverware. I got £20 on both domestic trophies for us. And as Mitch has just said there, it's going to happen sooner or later. And we've done enough of the later all our lives, haven't we? So hopefully it's sooner. But they can target it, because when you get into the thick end, especially the FA Cup, the teams that are challenging in the Champions League, the Europa League, etc., their games are coming thick and fast, and they have to prioritise. Do they want success in Europe, or do they want to win the FA Cup, where one of the or two of the big teams are still in the last eight? and it gives us, if we went all out, I think, again, fitness permitting, which we've taken precautions to try and ensure that is the case. So at least we'll have more fit players than we did last season, because there was that 10-week window, December through to February, that finished our season, or finished our Champions League qualification bid anyway. And if we don't have that this season, there's no reason why. I know we could all point at, there was that game. There was, over the course of the season, there was about 8 games minimum where we could have gained more points from. And if that's 1 or 2 points extra, that on average, that's 12 points extra. That would have had us comfortably qualifying for the Champions League. And that's without the new additions, and that's without Tonali. And yes, other teams will add to it, but we have a togetherness. And I'm going to try and pronounce the Greek goalkeeper's name. I know everyone wants to say Chakadimas, so I'll just say that because Chakadimas implies. But he was playing European football. If we look at him as a player, because you said yourself, Steve, he's looked good in the games, the minutes he's had. He was playing Champions League football in Portugal and comfortable with it. He then signs for Nottingham Forest. Now, irrespective, he could have signed for any team in the Premier League. He's come in as the number 1. And all of a sudden, the game is probably 2 or 3 times quicker than what it's played at Portugal. And then you've got the language issue and everything else. And he's thrown in at the deep end, and some people sink and some people swim. And it seems to me that because they were struggling at that end, and they made so many changes, signings-wise, Forest, that a lot was expected of him, and then he was discarded too quickly. But now he's come at us, knowing he's going to be number 2. He's a bit more relaxed, and hopefully we can gain the benefit of what is someone who's clearly a good goalkeeper. And whether it's 7 million, 10 million, or 20 plus million, whatever figure people want to say, he's a capable number 2. And how many players have we had? Who's at the Arsenal after now? Is it Marino? They're talking about 60 million for him, who didn't want to play for us, but now everyone wants them back. There's players that go to certain clubs and don't fit the style, that sometimes it takes them a while to fit into the area, to the country, to the playing formation, to the colleagues, and sometimes it gels. And for me, this player looks already comfortable to be part of the Newcastle family, and that means we don't have to start looking at another goalkeeper if Pope was to get an injury. So we've got capable cover there. So again, we use the keyword today is prioritise, and that gets us back to centre half and a right winger. Not someone who's going to fill the squad, someone who's going to be capable of starting the 11 and changing the games. And that's where we're going now. We will be bringing game changers in this window, I'm sure of it.
Yeah, no, Dubravka hasn't left, but I just genuinely think that, that will come at some course. I don't think he's in the plans. May well be, though. None of us thought Wilson would be in the plans at the moment, with still a few weeks to go in the transfer window. Yeah, they're all still there. Almiron, Trippier, Wilson, Dubravka. But any one of those 4 could go. All 4 could stay. Who knows? We will wait and see. All will become clear by the end of August. Okay, quick break. Back after this.
A big thanks to all our sponsors. Skips and Bins. You can find their website at skipsandbins.com. Contact us, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. Their website, mrvickies.co.uk. Email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to United Group Travel. They are the Travel and Tourism Award winners in 2024. Their website, www.unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com or telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. A big thanks to Media Arts. You can find them at www.media-arts.co.uk. And don't forget, we are a podcast. You can find us on iTunes or Spotify or other podcast providers. If you want to help the channel grow, then hit the like button, the little thumb underneath the video, click share and share to your social media, or join the channel for as little as $1.99 a month. If you want to take out a one-off payment membership, go to nufcmatters.com and hit membership. And for a £25 fee, you get a scarf, a cup, a pen, and a membership card. You can also put a smartphone over the top of this QR code. It'll take you straight there. And don't forget, we also help the food bank on this channel. nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk is a website where you can make a virtual donation today.
Okay, welcome back to NUFC Matters, the professionals, and there is lots of questions about Anthony Gordon coming in the chat as well. That still won't go away. We've talked about it quite a bit on here. People saying it's not going away. I've got to be honest, I'm not going to get into that again. People discussing that tend to be either people who don't like Newcastle very much or Liverpool supporters trying to cause a bit of mischief. So we're not going to go into that. We've discussed it plenty of times on here. Wait and see what happens at the end of the transfer window is what I'm going to say on that. Dave and Oz, good evening. He says, question for the, or good morning, probably to you. Question for the expats, Mitch and Stu, and those watching. Have you seen an increase in tune tops in the shops abroad since Adidas came in? I can't see them in shops in Western Australia. Mitch? Well,
considering I've bought the home and the third strip from the official Adidas app here in the UAE, and I've been in 3 or 4 Adidas shops recently in different malls, and only the small one in Dubai Marina Mall didn't have Newcastle shirts available in it. The Newcastle shirts were available in all the other malls I've been in. So yes, that is a change. The irony is, if you go to the Dubai Outlet Mall, Kistori have now got an outlet shop there, and there's what remains of the stock of the Kistori stuff all adorning that shop at the minute too. But yes, I've definitely seen an increase in terms of tops in the shops. But we've got a healthy expat sort of Geordie population here in the UAE, and we kind of bullied the Dubai Mall one to shop to get everything out on release day because they were taking their sweet time in a very typical Dubai fashion. But I think the Dubai mags effectively bullied the shop to get the tops out and on sale.
What's your thoughts on this one, Stu? Have you seen an increase where you live?
Oh, definitely. It's from the fact I moved to Bahrain from Dubai 5 years ago. You didn't see one Newcastle shirt unless I was wearing it. You see more, even when I'm out walking now. You see people with some of the gear on and stuff, like whether it be vests or t-shirts. And as you know, I deal a lot with Saudi clients. And as soon as you mention Newcastle, they call it our club.
Our club.
Yeah, it really is heartwarming. And there's still a long way to go, Steve. Even in Japan, we've seen that as good as it was, the PR exercise and everything else, it was fantastic. But we are growing as a fan base, and I think there's an admittance that there's a long way to go. But they're prepared to do the work. And it just shows how much we've been neglected previously to the strides that they've made. And over the last, well, we'll call it 3 years since the new owners, well, the existing owners come in, the strides that have been made, they could actually, over the next 3 years, at least treble it with the global fan base. And it's an evil necessity going to places like Australia, going to places like Japan and America last year. There's a lot of miles that have got to be done. But if you look at some of the video footage and even our own fans who have been across there, you don't realise how many people actually do follow Newcastle United, and now they're beginning to get their voice and say it with pride. Jody mugs like us two either side of you that'll say it come hella high water, but now people are actually proud to say that, yeah, I support Newcastle, And once we start winning things or becoming successful regularly European Champions Leagues wise, that will grow exponentially. And with the link with Adidas, we can become genuinely commercially a global force. You know, especially for playing the type or the brand of football that's been offered to us over the last 2 seasons.
Are you lads surprised we haven't brought a training ground sponsor and a training kit sponsor? I think somebody asked that earlier, but that crossed my mind. No, you're not surprised.
For a simple reason, Steve, they've got people lined up. But if, for example, if you say, right, we'll do it now, and you make, okay, it's 5 million a year. If you wait, which I believe is going to be November, the Man City case with the Premier League comes out, that 5 million could be 20, could be 30 million. And as long as it's done in the same financial year, which takes us round to June of next year, then I think they're playing at Cali for a reason. They're doing it where they can not plead poverty, but say, look, our hands are tied. We want your player. This is as much as we can give you, and etc. But if they start announcing far too much too soon, then it takes the value out of the players that they're wanting to get. So I think there's a lot of strategy behind the scenes. And again, you've got to give credit where it's due. But there's a waiting game. There will be sponsors. And as Mitch and I know from living in this region, there's a huge interest and there's a huge goodwill for Newcastle United to do well, especially from Saudi Arabia and, should we say, their friendly neighbours, long-term friendly neighbours, such as in the UAE, such as in Bahrain. It's a position where any larger sponsorship would be justified. So I'm not glad, because obviously we want everything settled now, and we want, yes, we've got this, we've got that, we've got them. But in a way, by holding off and waiting, it'll be the long-term benefit of the club. As long as they can start thinking for the here and now on the playing field, the long-term will look after itself.
Yeah, I cut you off there, Mitch. Did you have something else you wanted to say?
I'll give you a story from the day. Just so talking about seeing shirts and seeing reactions to shirts. I went for Sunday lunch with Steve and Luda, and when they were walking across to meet with, they were both in their black and white shirts, and a car stopped, apparently wound the windows down and shouted "Toon Army" at them, and then drove off.
Brilliant.
You sure that's what they shouted at Steve?
Brilliant. Fantastic. That's what you want. I did see somebody asking about next weekend, somebody mentioning that the Select Cup game, would it be affected next Saturday? Look, keep an eye on social media, keep an eye on the official club, website and stuff, because ultimately, the tensions in Britain are rising. That's what I mentioned at the start without going into it. I don't want to go into it. I'm sick of it. I really am. It's very upsetting for anyone living in the UK watching what's going on. But the club will make whatever decision they have to make, and I'm sure they'll do it with the backing of everybody. But I would imagine it'll go on. You can't let people, you can't.
We can't let right-wing thugs stop that.
No, the game has to go ahead.
Things like that, which are aimed very much are xenophobic and an excuse. After years of media-led and government-led xenophobia, Islamophobia and more, we cannot let that affect Newcastle United. Going ahead and standing up to that should be the essence of what Newcastle United's about and what Newcastle as a city's about. And try your best to stay safe, ignore them where possible, but we can't let them shut Newcastle United down.
Yeah, Newcastle's multicultural. It's black and white. We're black and white, and we want the game to go ahead next Saturday. So yeah, 100%. Let's just hope that nobody gets caught up in it. Nobody gets hurt and whatever. Please just be careful next weekend. That is the message that we really want to send out to everybody. And I'm sure you want to add to that, Stu.
Yeah, well, what I'll say, Steve, is in this world, sadly, there's a lot of love and a lot of hate. But we've talked about so many times, and anyone who watches the show has a huge love for Newcastle United, and that love will outweigh any hate. I noticed that the plan marches at 9:30 in the morning, and if going back to the word that we've used quite often this evening is prioritise. The priority for the vast majority of people in the conurbation of Tyneside is Newcastle United, and they won't get dragged into it. My only concern is you get people from other parts of the country coming to try and stir the pot, but we're very good at policing ourselves. We've seen it away game after away game after away game over the years, where we don't take any nonsense. So I think I hate getting involved with politics.
Well, we're not going to. We're not making this a party political broadcast. That's not what it is. A lot of people are concerned in the chat about it. We just want people to be safe. That's all we're saying.
The match this afternoon, and I think everyone's got an opinion of what's happening in the UK at the moment, and mine's irrelevant, and I won't give it. So what I will give is the fact that anyone who's going to the match next week is going because they love Newcastle United, and that's their priority. Go there and support the lads, and I think the rest will look after itself, hopefully anyway.
Kevin Griffin, thank you for your comment. He says, lads, can you do this show daily? It's the most positive Newcastle fan show out there. Thank you, mate. Thank you. Yeah, we do listen to what people say. It is. You know, we're trying to keep positive, as we've always done. Even in the dark days of the takeover not going through, we were positive. That's when we started. Many years ago. So thank you, Kevin, for that. And great to see the numbers tonight. 1,068 of you have taken your time to watch us tonight. Much appreciated. 440 of you on Twitter. So please, when the show finishes, jump over onto YouTube, hit the subscribe button. We do 7 shows a week. Get your questions in as well. We've still got 35 minutes and we can get through as many of these as we can. Captain Keithart, he says, lads, what are your thoughts on Harvey Barnes? I'll give you my opinion on him. I think he's a great player, great goal scorer. Problem with him last year was he was, hit with that, very curious injury, strange injury, something which, we were scratching our heads for weeks understanding, how he and Anderson had got injured. And, it was just devastating to see somebody who's clearly got a great eye for goal and who'd scored some great goals for Leicester in the season that they went down. Not get a chance to do it on a regular basis for us. He's the kind of player, Captain Keithart, if Newcastle can keep him fit next year, he's going to have a major say in, what Newcastle do next season. But you know what? Generally speaking, great player. Delighted to see him, getting ready for the new season, and let's hope he stays fit. That's my view, Mitch.
Well, exactly. And you've just got to look at his role in the comeback win against West Ham.
Yeah,
and the goals he scored, his movement, his pace. He's got everything at his disposal to be a top-class player for a long time. Hopefully that plantar fascia injury is something which won't recur. Now it's fully sorted. And what a genuine, nice dilemma. Do you start him? Do you have him on the bench? Do you have him coming off the bench for impact? When can you imagine a fullback who's just had 75 minutes of Anthony Gordon running him ragged? And then he looks over and thinks, oh, thank God, Gordon's going off. And it's Harvey Barnes that's coming on for the remainder of the game. There's going to be some right fullbacks thinking, oh, God, no, it's me done now. He's one of those impact subs, but he's got again down to him. Want to start the game, make the impact every week, and it's a delightful set of problems to have with things like that going forward when we've got a full squad of players available. It just shows how, to coin a phrase, hamstrung we really were by all those injuries. Sitting looking back at it now. Now it's history, and I can be calm about it, and we're not in the thick of it. Dear me, we went through a patch where if somebody sneezed, they'd probably put their back out, and so I think we've done well to get where we did. Yes, at times we had disappointments, but for somebody like to have Harvey Barnes fit and ready to go. As I say, just watch back that comeback win against West Ham at home last season. That's what we've got sitting ready to go now for this season, and that's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Harvey Barnes, but, you know, lots of people talking about different players who could come in, you know, Mbuemo and Duque, Sule. This is the one, obviously, Football Agents UK, he's, you know, he is right. You know, we've got Mitchell out watching Galatasaray's Barros Alba, who, again, I watched a few videos of him over the course of the day once I seen the name on the timeline, and he is quite a baller, you know. So, again, that's it. That's another one which has come out of the blue. I'll have to go through Barry's list. I'm not sure if he's been linked on your list, Barry, but yeah, Harvey Barnes, Stu. I mean, you know, he is a good player. And he's got a good eye for goal as well.
He's a great player, and there's people like him and Willock who probably epitomise. I think our season will depend on how they're integrated into the team and into the squad, because football's changed a lot since we started watching it. It is now a squad game. It's not the first 11 with one sub initially, then 3 subs. It's a squad game where everyone feels their role is of equal importance, whether that be to come on for 30 minutes, whether it be come on for 20, 15, 10 or whatever. It's to feel that they're contributing towards a greater good. And we go back to when we were playing 30 years ago. You know, if someone says you're going to be sub, it was a problem. But if someone now, you're a substitute, but your role is to do this, you're going to be the game changer, you're going to be the headline grabber, or you're going to be the defender that stops the goals when we need you. You know, and Eddie Howe's a magician at it, of making the whole team, the whole squad feeling inclusive together. And I think with Barnes, for all said and done, I'm a great fan of his. He hasn't stood out this week in the couple of games in Japan. There's a couple of times where he's got ahead of himself, like his feet were slower than his brain. But I'd rather be making those errors now than next month or the month after that, and it'll come. You know, as we say many times, the cream always rises to the top, and form is temporary, class is permanent. He's finding his way back into the squad. If you look at how Anthony Gordon changed after his first 6 months, and that was without a major injury like what Harvey Barnes encountered, I think he's going to have a huge say in our season this coming season. And wouldn't it be great if he come on and scored the winner in the cup final that you believe we're going to win, Steve? You know, yeah. Because it shows that it's a squad game, and it's not just 11 now. We need 18 people at least capable of starting and can rotate to reduce their injuries, but they need to be 18 good players. And I know you can get 19 or 20 with the bench players, but you can't play 3 keepers at the same time. You need people who are more than capable of coming on, and you'll have people like Lloyd Kelly that can come and do a job. You can have people maybe even long term like Shaw or Kraft that can do a job, and someone like Harvey Barnes, he has that X factor. He's capable of going past players. He's capable of shooting with either foot, and he can see a pass. And he's a very forward-thinking type of player, where as soon as he gets the ball, his first instinct, his first thoughts are, can I score a goal or create a goal? I need to move this ball forward. And when you're chasing the game, it's a great thing to have.
Yeah, it is. Football Agents, thanks for that, mate. Obviously, you're in the know more than we are on those kind of things. He said that on the system, Yilmaz's reports are now blocked, which means clubs requested privacy or medical requested by a club. That's interesting stuff, that. So, yeah, hopefully Newcastle will be in for that. Tuna, thank you very much. Can I just say thanks to the professionals, amigos and more, for what you do, taking the time out to do what you do, taking time out of your personal lives, away from your families. Legends. We're not quite legends, Tuna, but thank you very much for that. 1,100 of you watching tonight. 1,100 of you watching. It's very kind. And we've had Steve Hasty, who's been out working his socks off this weekend. Sent us a message earlier on. He's mixing with the stars again in the job that he does. But anyway, he did say that 3 people have come up to him and said, oh, we love the show, and you know, it's always humbling. I was out yesterday, and you know, a couple of people came up to me and said exactly the same. You know, that they love the show, watch it all the time. It's great.
I got stopped in Charles de Gaulle Airport and blew me mind.
Yeah, We do like it, so thanks very much. John, thank you. We don't always agree, we don't always agree, but we don't always agree, John, in the chat. But he says, follow this channel since it came on YouTube, it just gets better and better. John, that's very kind of you. We've got some really good stuff coming towards the end of the year as well. Something very exciting. And we have been talking behind the scenes as well, potentially, probably we've been talking about this for about 18 months, about doing a fanzine, a good old-fashioned fanzine. Maybe just do 3 a year. Maybe one at the start of the season, one in the middle of the season, and one at the end of the season, and doing it as a paper copy, a glossy paper copy. I've got a designer who would be up for doing it, who is often in the chat. Rob Maltman is keen on doing it. Looking at a couple of other things, it will cost us to do it. We'll probably make it as a non-profit magazine, so we'll need to cover the costs. But I might put something in a community post later to see if you'd be interested. You would just subscribe, you'd pay a one-off fee like you do with your membership, but you'd have to pay this every year. And then we maybe do like a magazine, print it up and post it out here. Obviously, we need to cover the postage and the print. I think the designer's up for doing it for free as well, which is great. And as I say, non-profit. Or maybe we could do it where we put an extra quid on it and it goes to the Dementia Matters. The Dementia Matters charity or something like that. But what I'll do is I will put it in the community post. I'll stick it on Facebook. I'll gauge opinion, and then maybe what we can do is look at doing something like that. And if there's any keen writers out there, any of you who are up for writing, then maybe put yourself forward as well. But good opportunity. I used to love doing the fanzine, and maybe we will bring it back. Nothing 100% yet though. Can you tell Ben Parkinson has had 7 offers for League One and League Two teams for a season-long loan with Chesterfield, looking favourites, and Murphy has had interest shown by Celtic, surprisingly. Again from football agents, so thank you for that, mate. That's his opinion, that's his info, not ours. So
Alex Murphy, not Jacob Murphy.
Alex, yeah, will be, yeah, 100%. And a Christmas song, yeah, we did one a couple of years ago, and I've noticed the people chatting about my singing. Well, if you send in tweets of the week with my singing, I will keep doing it. And I'll just let you know there is two already for tweet of the week, which involves singing. I know you'll be pleased to hear, and you, Julie. And the inebriated show was special. Dean, we might do one day live. We'll do one live from a pub when Stu and Mitch are over next time. That's what we'll do. Ken, good evening. He says, Mitch, Stu, did you guys ever come across Neil Gwynn's pub in Dubai?
No, Gwynn's in the Biblos Marina.
Nell Gwynn, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, there's a story I probably shouldn't tell him there, but no, I'll try and tone it down. Previously, a couple of weeks beforehand, I had someone's tooth lodged in one of my knuckles. Oh, and then we're in Nell Gwynn's, and you know what happens is you get talking, and it was still there. And then there was a group of about 8 of us. And what I didn't realise, 8 of my friends who were builders, etc., all of them become doctors, and they all knew how to fix it until someone whipped out a penknife and stuck it in my knuckle and pulled this out, and then there's just blood everywhere. And then I needed to put coffee in it. Then I needed to put iodine in it. And it was just a catastrophic mess. But that was.
I don't want to know anymore. Leave it there. We don't endorse violence on NUFC Matters, even if it's in self-defense. Well, leave it there. Says Jules. But yeah, they definitely have been there anyway. Doug Hall says carnage. That's all he says. John had a question earlier on. He says, if Paul Mitchell is above Eddie in the hierarchy, does that mean he's paid more? How important is it that the person in charge of the team has a main say on transfers? And who has the main say now? Well, again, this is only going to be our opinion because we don't know Mitch, but he's not above Eddie in the hierarchy, is he, or not? It's our opinion. Do you think he is?
Kind of was positioned that way with that sort of hierarchy diagram that they put together. But my understanding from what they've said all along is that these things are still decisions made mutually. And I would have thought any manager with any balls, if he has players parachuted in underneath him that he doesn't want, well, he knows where the door is.
Okay. What's your views on that, Stu? Again, it's your opinion.
In the structure of the club, yes, Mitchell will be above Eddie Howe, just because he has more than one role. but salary-wise, no. And I don't know. I can only look at my own business. There's people who have bigger titles, but they don't earn the same money as people who don't have the same titles. So yeah, Paul Mitchell's there, and I think we've referred to him in the past like an octopus, where or even if we coin Nashville's phrase, he's the centre of the wheel and spoke sticking out everywhere. But in any football club, one of the best paid people behind the footballers should always be the manager. So there'll be people like maybe the CFO, the CCO. They'll all be on a good wedge, but they won't be on as much as Eddie Howe, that's for sure.
Okay, Jody Toomba Life, good evening. He says, question, if Howe left Newcastle for whatever reason, and I love Howe as much as anyone, would you see the Poch link as a good fit for Newcastle and the players we have, meaning intensity? I mean, it's hypothetical. We've discussed this, quite a lot on the show as well. But I will ask the question, Jody Toomba Life, and I'll give you my answer. I mean, it's an obvious link because of Mitchell and his relationship with him. But is he the right fit for Newcastle? Is he the right kind of manager? I would say he's an improvement, but again, it's it's a slight improvement. He's got the European Champions League final, got beat, of course, but. He's led Spurs to Europe in the past. Went to Chelsea at a difficult time. You can't really judge him on that. But yeah, is the Poch link a good fit? Yes. Could he be like if it did happen, could he be like Mancini? Mancini was a great fit for Man City at the right time. And should have gone on to do a lot longer than he did. But yeah, I think Poch would be a good fit, but it's academic because we've got a manager who's a good fit, and at the moment we don't want him to leave. That would be my view anyway, Mitch. I wouldn't want Eddie Howe to leave. And Eddie's obviously frightened Mitch off. His internet's gone. So Stu, you got a question for him?
Well, it's a lazy link because of the association with Mitchell. It's an obvious link for that reason, but it's not without the realms of possibility. But I'm with you that I think for any success Newcastle United are going to have in this coming season, Eddie Howe's an integral part. And if he was to be, that's the story for out of hours, I think. That'll be from behind the paywall or something, as I think the phrase is. But the Pochettino, yes, because of the links. But for me, the importance of Eddie Howe cannot be overlooked. I think. Without Eddie Howe, we will not achieve with any other manager apart from him, because he has built this squad. He's got the togetherness. He's got the respect of the players. And what we need now more than anything else is, especially on the curve we're on, is continuity. And Eddie Howe offers that. And as long as he remains dedicated and committed to succeeding at Newcastle United, then for me, he should have the job as long as that stays the same.
Yeah, I would, for me, Eddie Howe, deserves the opportunity to push on, and 100%, I'd love to see him stay. So academic really asking that question, but we've done our best there. No sign of Mitch coming back yet, so hopefully he's not too long. And a big thanks to Football Agents UK for sharing that knowledge. Yeah, new face in the chat, and nice when somebody decides to come on and do that. Neil's just texted to say Wi-Fi's dead. I'll have to switch to my phone, so he is coming back. Interesting as well from Football Agents UK says, if I look up Isaac, Gordon, Pope and Botman and Bruno, they all have NC tags, which means no contact allowed. Well, that's refreshing to hear something like that. Lee comes in with another question. He says, which players will go before the end of the season? Will there be any surprises, do you think, Stu? I don't think any of the blue chip players will go.
End of the season or end of the window?
End of the window, sorry, it says.
And then end of the window. No, I think it's been made quite clear that they need to keep the core. I mean, it's the message that would be sent out. Bruno couldn't have been more blatant in his statement yesterday how he is committed to Newcastle United, and it would be great if once back in the fold, Anthony Gordon said something similar. But I'm with you, Steve. I think it's just a bit of mischief created by those who oppose Newcastle United and want to cause a bit of unrest, and those of a Liverpool red flavour. So I don't see anything in that. I believe they've bought into it, And if you look how we finished last season, once players started coming back, I think there's a great belief amongst the squad that they're very nearly still got European football. So I can't say they've at least committed. I would say behind the scenes, they've all said, right, we'll give you one more year at least, and we'll have a big push. That's where I'm getting my confidence from.
Yeah, welcome back, Mitch. I'll unmute you now, mate. There's just a little bit of feedback coming through from that, unfortunately. Can you hear us? You've got no. We can't hear you, Mitch. We can't hear you.
Right. Okay.
Oh, we got you. Yeah, we got you a little bit there. Yeah, Wi-Fi's knackered. So last 15 minutes of the show, we'll have to crack on without Mitch. Good question here from George Bainbridge, and that was: would the lads change the fixtures to 14 home, 14 away, and 10 worldwide, Stu?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. There's no need for it. It's even we've talked about this extra fixture. How do you play it? Where do you play it? It's the English Premier League, and it should be played in England. And maybe I'm old-fashioned that way, but that's how it is. And I understand it's a global game now, but it's an English league, and it should remain in England. And it's got to the strength it's got by doing so. And you can only tinker with it to the point where it becomes too commercialized, and people then stop buying into it, if that makes sense. We're there without the crowds. The European Super League was a litmus test for it, wasn't it? And for me, when the way especially the Chelsea fans, the way they come out and were against it, I think it will be. They may come out with one game, but who misses out there, Steve? If there's 20 teams, that means 10 teams are going to miss out on a home game, and then that imbalances the league. So how do they do it? Do they reduce the size of the league and create 2 extra fixtures so no one misses a home or away fixture? It's money orientated as it is, it's money driven as it is, but there has to be, to me, there has to be a point where people say enough's enough. It doesn't mean that it's not wanted. And the one that probably got the most coverage was teams starting from different positions all around the world, whether it be Los Angeles, New York, Ireland, somewhere else in Europe. Then you come across to the Middle East and the Far East, Australia, etc. So there's one game after another. But how would you work that out? What about the team that played in Ireland and then the team that played in Australia, and they have to play each other the game after back in the UK? For me, it's too much, and the tinkering doesn't need to be done. Keep it as it is. They've already fixed the kickoff times to suit certain regions, like the 12:30s suit the Far East better, the 5:30s suit the States better, and there might be more games at those times, but really they should not or ever even contemplate changing the fixtures from outside of the home areas as they are.
Listen, I agree. I genuinely don't think they should, but I'm not going to say that they're not going to try. I still think what happens with Man City is going to be the big question. Whatever happens to Man City might dictate what they decide to do moving forward. So, a lot of question marks around that, I'm afraid. Let's see what happens with Man City before the Americans try to change things again. There was another question that came in, and that was from Chippers. He said, "Question for the lads: do they think had Howe won us the League Cup 2 years ago, that the England job would be more appealing to him now?" Good question. Had he won a trophy already, Stu? Would he have been more likely to maybe think about taking an England job if he was offered it? Although I think he's made his point quite clear at the moment. He doesn't want to leave. But had he won a trophy, might it have made it a bit easier? Probably would have made it harder for the owners, wouldn't it?
I think if he's given the license to do the job where he feels he's got enough wiggle room to do it the best of his ability, I think he's fully committed to Newcastle. He's made that clear. Had he won the League Cup, it's all hypothetical, isn't it? Had he won the League Cup, maybe we would have won something else this season as well. So you can only be what ifs and maybes and everything else. But I get Chipper's question. Had he won it, then he could say, "I've done it." But imagine the adulation he got. It would probably be even harder to leave. So you can look at it both ways. I don't think Eddie Howe's the type to say, right, I've won you a trophy and start washing his hands and like, that's it, job done, I'm off now. I think he would want more.
Yeah, I will say out of all the managers in England, Eddie Howe is the worst, and in lets nothing short or gives no clues, says Football Agents, which is good as well. Your internet's okay, Stu. I can see you're looking a bit concerned. It was going slightly in and out there, but it's fine at the moment. We should get through the last 10 minutes of the show. Sean, good evening. He's watching us on Twitter. Don't forget to jump over onto YouTube and give us a sub, Sean. He says, I really love what Howe is building with the core of these incredible young English players. Barnes, Gordon, Miley, Tino, Hall, Gay, if he signs some of the young lads we've signed at the academy. I think in a few years we could have a number of England internationals in the squad. And I think you're right, Sean. Tino looked great pre-season. He's just steady away. I know a lot of other people are getting praised for their performances. You know, the likes of Murphy and Sanusi coming through. The appliance of sciences there, Stu got in earlier. But yeah, it's great to see Tino looking so accomplished in there. And, Lewis Hall's looked great as well. So yeah, there's a lot of positivity for the future. Another player, of course, who we've yet to see is Tonali, of course, whose ban finishes at the end, more or less the end of this month. How do the lads think Tonali will do when he comes back? Might be quite rusty. See Tony for Brentford last season. I think the fact that he's been allowed to train for the best part of for all of his time suspended will play a different part. And I think, hopefully we'll have picked up quite a bit of English and a bit of Geordie by now, Stu. I think Tonali will surprise us all.
I think he's more than competent in his English now, and you don't want to call it a blessing in disguise because it should never have happened. The gambling and then the ban. No, I'm not saying the ban shouldn't have happened because those are the rules, but the point I'm making is he's had time to bed in. He's had time to learn the new language. He's now integrated fully into the squad. You see him, he's happy to do events. He's happy to do, even when they do stupid ping pong challenges or darts challenges, he's involved. And I think deep down, I think he'll feel a certain level of guilt, a certain level of he's indebted to the support he's received. And I look at someone like Tonali. If you look at how everyone was excited when we first signed, I didn't see that. He's still the same player. Tonali's still the same player there. So he's different to Tony. Tony made it clear that he wanted to leave and he thought he was bigger than Brentford. And as soon as he got back, he was playing for a move. We've had no vibes like that from Tonali, and I think he's going to come back with a point to prove. Yes, he'll be a bit rusty, but I don't think they're just going to throw him in and say, right, you're playing now, you're worse. He'll have to earn his right to be in that starting 11 the same as everyone else. And if he is earning the right, we all know he's a quality player. And the fact that he can't speak English, he'll understand the system better, he'll understand his teammates better, as in when to make the runs, when to not make the runs. He's also very good at set pieces, which with the absence of, or the expected absence of Kieran Trippier, again, he could play a huge role in our success this season.
We'll get to the end of the show. Don't worry.
You're on mute, Steve.
Yeah, and you're about 10 seconds behind with your internet. I was on mute, but I'm not anymore. Never mind. We've only got about 6 or 7 minutes. We'll get there till the end. Lots of other questions coming in. I'll try and get the best one. Spenny, good evening. He said, do we still need a defensive centre midfielder? We were crying out for one last season. I think we're fully equipped in centre midfield now. Spenny is my honest answer to that question. I think Lewis Hall has proven that. I think that he can easily fill the role and fill the gap. I know we've let Anderson go, which, for some people was disappointing, but he's injured again. How long he's out for, I'm not sure. But ultimately, I think we've got more than enough in that position. And I think, Joe Linton is very capable of being that kind of hatchet man in the midfield. Bruno can do it. He can sit deeper. So yeah, I don't think we're crying out for a defensive centre midfielder, Stu.
I think last season when we were really wanting one, there was myself included, a big push for Calvin Phillips, is because that was the 10-week spell I mentioned just before, December through January, February, where we only had 3 midfielders, and Longstaff and Miley were 2 of them, and Bruno on 9 yellow cards was the other. So having someone in there with a bit more experience to sit and help cover the defence, because remember, Pope wasn't there and teams seem to be running through our midfield with a lot more ease than they should do. There was a need for that. But as you said, I think we're going to be a lot more on the front foot this coming season. And what we've seen of Lewis Hall, he's more than capable to cover that position. But I still believe the best defensive midfielder we've got's not even played there yet, and that's Joe Linton. I think he could break up play. And you imagine you've got the ball, Steve, and you're running towards their goal, and you've got Somali Kid running at you. You want to get rid of it as quick as you could, couldn't you? And that's what defensive midfielders do. They break the play up and make you pass it quicker than you want. So I think for the majority of the games next season, there'll be more teams worried about us than us worried about them, especially without the European fixtures.
Yeah, I would agree. Football Agents UK says, I can tell you for last season already, Tonali's report's been updated with 32 improvement points. The average is 10 to 15. Be excited. He's literally doubling his skill level. That sounds great as well. And apologies, yeah, Anderson looks like he's fit. I know he went off injured in the first friendly. Lots of people saying Anderson on the bench. I think he was there for the last friendly. He played 45 minutes yesterday. Well, that's good. I'm pleased for him. I wouldn't want him to be injured. I wished him all the best when he left, and I would still say that. And Tonali's weaknesses last season, 7 already before the season started. It's down to 3. Interesting stuff. Interesting stats. Thanks for joining us. Please make sure you check in again. It's always interesting to have a little bit of inside knowledge from somebody in the know like that. Steve, will there be an NUFC Matters Fantasy Football League this season? Lots of people asking this question. As you know, John sets things up like that on here. I'm not somebody to set those kind of things up. John has had a tough time over the last few months, and he is taking a little bit of a break. So, unfortunately, John. Well, I'll certainly not be joining this, but good luck to everybody who does do it. But Jules, if you want to do it, I'm more than happy for you to set up the official one. If you want to do that, Jules, she's put her head above the parapet there, so I'm not sure whether she was keen on doing it or not. We've already talked about that blue chewer. So if you just rewind back when the show finishes, you'll be able to chip in and see that. Barry, good evening. Thanks for sending us the list over. I'll see you tomorrow night on the fans forum. He says, do you think Miggy, Trippier and Wilson deals will still go through? It's all gone quiet. Got to be honest, Barry, the Miggy, Trippier and Wilson deals, we know Wilson and Trippier could have gone in January. They didn't. Miggy could have gone in January. Didn't. Are there still deals on the table? Is Paul Mitchell wanting to keep a hold of them? Is Eddie Howe wanting to keep a hold of them? Or other things in their mind? There'll have been a complete change of plan and policy, perhaps, behind the scenes on those 3 players. Lots of rumours were flying around that Mitchell had wanted and Howe both wanted Trippier to stay. So who knows? Is the honest answer on that. Again, we'll only be able to give our opinion, but I still think players will go, and if they don't go this window, will they go in January? It's up in the air, Stu, isn't it, really?
I think with the 3 players that I mentioned, if we had to put number 1 being the most likely to go, number 3 being most likely to stay, I think it would be Trippier, Miggy and Wilson. Wilson for the reasons that we've already mentioned. Trippier, I think he'd already resigned himself or accepted or even wanted to move on for other reasons. And with Miggy, yes, he wants to stay, but at the same time, he's seen Murphy probably jump ahead of him in the queue. And if we go and sign another right winger, if he's got any ambition about him, he's going to say, right, I need to go somewhere that gets first team football. But using the phrase that Mitch said at the start of the show, there's a domino effect needed. We're not in a position to weaken our squad, so I think we'd need to get someone in before we release Miggy, rather than release him and then hope to get someone in. So that's where I think we stand with that. I just hope that whoever we bring, well, I don't hope, I know whoever we bring in will improve the team. And this gets to another thing that I want to mention. I know we're always being positive, but for me, it's beyond belief that certain so-called fans feel they need to personally abuse players on social media. The stick that Sean Longstaff got yesterday, it was sickening. It was sickening. And we can always say, like, okay, we know the positions where we could improve to advance the team, but to personally attack someone who gives his all, whether it works every game or not, he gives his all, he's living the dream, and it's always by faceless accounts with false names. And it's like you've really got to start thinking, like, what's wrong with your life if you need to start doing that? You're not big, you're not clever, and how can that benefit the player? Whether he reads it or not, his friends or family will get back to him one way or the other. And what we need to do is be supportive of everyone who can play. Nothing wrong with saying they've had a bad game. There's nothing wrong with saying we don't think they're the best player for that position. But to start being personal and abusing people is cowardice. That's what it is. So
and Sean's a top lad, and he's a Geordie.
Yeah. So he's living the dream. So it could be jealousy, but Steve, the cowardice is probably the right word for it. He's living the dream, and even when he hasn't played, he's never hid. No, when he hasn't played well, he's never hid. And what more can he ask for someone to do the best? And if his best isn't good enough to be a regular Premier League or regular Champions League contender, then so be it. But to abuse him personally, it's beyond sad.
We got to the end of the show. Internet is against us in the Middle East. Poor Mitch, cut off on his prime, he says, and Stu battling against it. He's about 10 seconds behind, so probably won't hear us say goodnight. I'll have to do one of those kind of Alan Partridge long pauses for him to actually realise that the show is finished. So thanks very much, everybody, for watching. Thanks to all the admin. Thanks to 1,141 people watching live tonight, which is a big thank you to all of you as well. I'm back 6 o'clock tomorrow, and it will be the Fans Forum. Talk of the Tune is on Tuesday night at 6, and on Wednesday night it'll be my all-time worst 11. Thursday, Super Matt and Gibbo, and then we'll be back on Friday with the Amigos. Have a good night tonight. Stu, thanks very much, mate. Take care. See you soon.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.